Candidates need to know how to define a single table database. They also need to choose and specify suitable data types such as Boolean, string, integer or real, and choose a suitable primary key and perhaps explaining why, and perform a query by example, which is very similar to the Microsoft Access design view query. So let's take a look at a question here, which is a table called staff phone. It's got 3 fields: name, department, and extension number. So it says, question 6a, explain why none of the fields in the database can be used as a primary key. So the answer to this for the 2 marks is, the first mark of course is, you'll notice the repetition. So that's the key thing to notice for any question that talks about primary key. It's that you've got repeated data, and it wouldn't hurt to give an example of that. So you've got repeated data. For example, you've got Jane Smith. Department, you've got toys is repeated, so that obviously isn't unique. And as well as you've got the extension numbers there repeated, and 129 repeated there. So you've got repeated data, which is of course no good because it needs to be unique. So the first mark is that you've got repeated data or duplicate entries in table, and the second mark would be for that none of the fields have unique entries. None will have unique entries. As we've just seen, toys are twice. We need something that is unique to every record. Every row in this table needs to have something that's unique to identify it with. Now often these are going to be IDs or codes. So state a field that could be used as a primary key. So something like staff, could do with staff ID, or staff number, spelled differently, but something like that, something that can be unique, that's going to be a unique number or code. And a reason for this, so that it does uniquely identify each staff member in the table. And then often the last part of the question is to query by grid example, which is pretty much the same as Microsoft Access. So it's worth doing some practice in Access to create a simple single table database and to add some data and just to see how this works and perform several queries. So we need, if we look at the question, a list of all members of staff, alphabetical order, so that's A to Z or ascending, grouped by department. So let's have department, which is the field, and we'll have their name. It's from the table, there's only one table, which is staff phone. And we want to sort by department, so we want ask or ascending. You can put ask or ascending. We want to show that one, and we want to show that one. And obviously the order is important here. So for example, we've got department here and we've got name here. We want to sort by department first. We put department on the left and then name here. So we'll get a couple of marks for that, and we'll get a mark for the right order. So let's look at another question, very similar, just a single table here about TV store. So it's about their stock really. You can see here we've got a TV ID, which presumably is going to be the primary key. We've got screen size and other fields along the top. Now if we scroll down, the first question asks us this time the type of the TV ID and give a reason for your choice. So the type is, well, you want to say it's the primary key, and obviously the type doesn't mean data type, so let's just make sure we cover all bases. So it's a primary key. It's basically a text field, string. Another way to describe that, it contains alpha numeric data. Okay, just to qualify that, mark, there's a lot to write there, but if in doubt, make sure you cover everything. It says complete the table with the most appropriate data type. So this is something else that was covered that you need to know in the spec. So this is relatively straightforward. Screen size, as we can see, is a whole number, so we can put int or integer. 3D, it's either yes or no, so it's Boolean. Curved or flat, well, it's stored as CV or FT, so we're probably best putting text or string. Internet is of course Boolean. HDD again is Boolean because it's yes or no, and price is, let's put currency. So similar data types as you're used to in Python, but often string, we use text, short text, long text, and for the different formats of floating point is currency, because it's obviously 2 decimal places. So that's 3 marks for that. And then the final question, again, as most papers, we've got a query by example grid here. Now let's look at what we need to do. So in an exam, you want to pick out what we need to do. So we want a list of all the curved screen TVs that have built-in hard disk. Make sure the list only displays the TV ID, price, and screen size in ascending order of price. So that's the key information that we need to do. And again, I want to get it in the right order. So TV ID, screen size, curved, flat, it's the Boolean one, HDD, which is again Boolean, and then price. Now all of these come from TV stock. So I'll just put that across there. Now the sort, as it said here, a sort ascending of price. So we'll sort ascending. Which ones do we want to show? At the end it said displays the TV ID price. So show TV ID, show screen size and price. And then we still haven't finished because the criteria, we want curved. So criteria equals CV, put it in quotation speech marks, and Boolean, you can just put yes or possibly true, but let's just keep with yes or no, as that's how it's presented here in the data. So keep with the same data type. And that concludes looking at 2 database questions. Fairly straightforward, no need to know about relational databases, just about those things we've mentioned, which is a single table. The fact that that table is made up of records which go across, and we've got the fields that go down. You'll need to know about primary key, such as something that's unique to each record that goes across, usually some kind of ID or number, and given a reason about why. Data types, a reminder, text, if it's alphanumeric. If it's a floating point number, decimal number, and it's to do with money, use currency. If it's a whole number, integer. If it's true or false, yes and no, Boolean. And that really covers most of them.